In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do hexagonal Christmas stocking. This is called On the Dot Stocking, a free pattern by yarnspirations.com. Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd as well as yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to work on the Christmas stocking. It's made up of 17 hexagons. They are all the same as far as design. The only difference that you see is the color. So it's a very retro kind of look. For my particular stocking, I decided to go all one solid color, and I decided to use the Caron Simply Soft Party yarn, and I've done mine in red, and it has a bit of a shimmer and sparkle to it, so it's really quite amazing. So let me tell you a little bit more about this pattern, and then we'll get started on doing the prep work for this tutorial. So as I mentioned, each of the hexagons is the exact identical pattern, so you just have to make 17 of these and then put it together just like you see in this particular layout. So what we want to do is that before you begin to do the stocking formation like this, we have to create a stocking flat piece that looks like this, so you can count that there's all 17. But there's a little bit of a catch to this particular pattern which is not very obvious on here, and I want to show you that right now. So here's a blown up version of that same diagram. Okay, just like you see. So I blowed it up, and here we go. And I don't want to start giggling on this tutorial today. What we have right here, D and G and E and F are not to be assembled. So when you go to lay this flat and you put it all together, do not assemble these two seam lines. So you want to have this gap, because the reason for it is that B ends up over top of the stocking. So here is an example of what it looks like when you put it all together. So if, say, you're not even going to crochet it and you want to use this paper, you can see how it comes together in paper format and how it all works out. So it's actually really quite amazing. So the biggest tip is do not put D and G, E and F together when you're doing this complete configuration when you're going to lay it down. So how you look at it is that you have to look at the side. So I can tell that this is the top because there's no letters here. Do you see A, B, C, and see all these smaller little letters here? That's the attachment. So A attaches to A, and then B attaches to B, and C and D, and etc. So right here, for example, we have E and F. So if this was attached, you would never be able to get E in there, so you got to make sure you don't sew these together in the initial, and then F is attaching to here, and it works out. You just have to trust in it, I guess. So that's how you would put it together. So let me show you how to do one of the hexagons first, and then I'm going to show you some tips on putting this together and then go from there. So let's begin. You'll notice in the pattern it's asking for Caron Simply Soft Holiday or Caron Simply Soft in just regular. I'm using Caron Simply Soft Party because I like to be different, but mine is a solid color that I've been working with, but I'm going to show you how to make sure you change that color if you wish. And again, the color changes are completely up to you. You're going to need a 5mm size H crochet hook today, and let's start off with a slip knot. So you have to make 17 of these identical. If you're following the color schemes, that information is given to you on the pattern. So the hexagons go really quick, so let's begin. So we're going to chain 4. Remember that the slip knot on the hook does not count as 1. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then go into the starting chain and yarn over and pull through, and then you have the interior ring of your hexagon. You want to treat this straggler like it's part of that ring and just wrap it around the outside, so when you go to play with it, it gets stuck underneath, so you'll never see a starting point or any loose ends at the beginning or at the middle of your hexagon. Let's begin round number 1. We want to start off by chaining 3. Remember in the rules of crochet, when you do this, is that chaining of 3 counts as a double crochet. So let's do that. So 1, 2, 3, and we want to do 2 more double crochets into the center of the ring, and again trapping that straggler down on top so that it gets buried underneath and you'll never see it. So hexagons have 6 sides, so this is one side of 6. So to do the next group of 3, you have to chain 1 first, go back into the center of the ring for another 3 double crochets. So every one of the sides has 3 double crochets associated to it. Okay, so there's my another group of 3. So chain 1 and then come back into the center ring. Now you're going to notice as I get a little bit further that you're gonna run out of space in the center, but because you are going around the center ring you can always shift things in order to move and make room for more. It does all fit. So now I can see that I have 3 sides, 1, 2, 3. So I have another 3 to go. So chain 1 first and continue to double crochet in groups of 3. Okay, so that was the 4th side, chain 1, going back in. So I'm looking like I'm running out of space, so I get really close on that 5th one and I just have to make room for that 6th. Okay, so I can see, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I need 6 groups of 3. See how I just kind of shifted and then a chain 1 and then do the final group of 3. This is my 6th side, and what I want to do then is chain 1 and then just join it to the top of the chain 3 that you started with, like so. And that concludes round number 1. So you should be able to count the groups of 3. I know it's kind of tight in there, but it has to be in order to be in the center. Now because we have buried the center just like so, you're gonna have that string hanging out. You just got to take the pair of scissors and just simply trim that out, and nobody will ever know where you stopped and started, and it's a nice clean start. So let's turn this back around and let's begin round number 2. So round number 2, we're at the beginning of the group of 3. Okay, so everything is in group of 3s. So we have to slip stitch till we get to the first chain 1 space. Okay, so you're just gonna come along the top and just going into the next stitch and slip stitch that one. And you're gonna want to slip stitch the final one of the 3 because you started at the first one, and then slip stitch right into in between. So in the chain 1 space, slip stitch, and now you're ready to begin round number 2. Round number 2, we're gonna start off by chaining 3, which counts as a double crochet, and we're going to double crochet 2 more times into that chain 1 space. So each one of the corners for the hexagon now have this configuration. So we have a group of 3, we chain 1, and we do another group of 3 in the same chain 1 space, and that becomes a new corner. So the corners for these always have these 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. Okay, so now that you've done that, chain 1 and just simply come back and just look for the next group of 3. Okay, and then just come on to the other side of it into the chain 1 space and double crochet 3 more times. Chain 1 and double crochet again 3 more times. So that's how you're gonna do this entire round. I'll show you one more time. So after you get that done, just simply chain 1 and then just go. You can see that there's 3. So 1, 2 and 3, and it's a chain 1 space and another group of 3 double crochets. Okay, chain 1 and then 3 double crochets again. I did screw up one of my hexagonals, and I noticed it afterward that I had forgotten to put in my chain or 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, so I ended up with a corner that was kind of missing half of it. So continue that same configuration going all the way around. Just be mindful to make sure that you're playing within the chain 1 spaces, and I'll meet you back here in just a moment. So I've almost come all the way back around, and I can see I should have 6 sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Don't forget, after you do your 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, you have to chain 1 first and then join to the top. So I'm gonna give you 2 options here. Mine is a solid color red. There's only 1 round left. That's how fast these things go. So and you can see the size of it. So if you wanted to keep the same color, you're just going to slip stitch like you did before to the first chain 1 space, and it's right in the corner, and then you can begin the instructions. If you were going to change color, this is where you're going to do it, and I'm gonna change color just so that people have this as a reference. And all I'm just gonna do is that I've trimmed my yarn, and I'm just going to wrap it around. So when we go to start the next round, we have to start right into a corner. That's why I've had you slip stitch over if you were not changing color, but if you are changing color, you have to start off in the corner anyway. And I'm just weaving in my ends, and I'm going to bring up some gray for the next color. So this is what it looks like. You should be able to see the 6 sides by now, and let's do the final round together. So I've got my next color and I'm going to start off with a slip knot. I just like starting off that way. So what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna start off in the corner. You should know that if you are going to do this, the sewing of it, you should use the same exterior color. So all of the rounds, you'll notice that it's all white that is basically connecting. So I'd recommend that. It's a lot nicer look. So we're going to start off in a corner, so it doesn't matter which one you start off with as long as it's a chain one space right into a corner. And we're gonna start in, and I'm just gonna grab the yarn from the other side and attach, and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. The wonderful thing about this is that the corners are identical to what you already did below. So this is already one of the double crochets, so I gotta double crochet 2 more times. Make sure that this is down on top so that you can trap it underneath. And get so that you have your 3, chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets into the same corner. And now that that straggler has been trapped underneath all those stitches, you can safely trim that afterward and not worry about it falling out. So you're going to then chain 1 and into this space, okay, so here's the corner over here, but the first space you're going to put 2 double crochets only, followed by a chain 1. And what we have to just then do is that we're going to, in the next corner, is the same thing as what you already know. So it's gonna be 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochet. Okay, so I'll review the side one more time. So this is my third one going in. So once you get a corner done, chain 1. So this is the space that's in between the 2 corners. It's only 2 double crochets. You're going to instinctively want to do 3 because your brain has been programmed with the corners. Just make sure it's only 2 because it doesn't look right if it's not. So then the next corner, so 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then a corner again. So 3 double crochet, chain 1, and 3 double crochet. Please do that all the way around, and we'll come back in just a moment. I'll finish this off and then I'm gonna show you the start of the assembly process. When you come all the way back around, you're gonna finish off with your 2, chain 1, and then just join it to the top of the first chain 3. So that's it. That's how these hexagons are. You need to make 17 of these in order to proceed to the next part of the tutorial. I'd recommend that you getting all 17 done prior to doing the attaching of the graph that we see, or the diagram that we see within the pattern. And I'm going to show you tips on how I did it. I have a little bit of a different way, but of course my ideas are just ideas, and if you have something better and you prefer something else, then you're welcome to do so. What I do is trim out your strands now and get those out of the way. So you're gonna have to get rid of them anyway, so you might as well just do it now, and then you can end up with a nice clean pile of granny hexagons, and then you can proceed to the next part. So get 17 done, and then I'll see you back here in just a moment and I'll show you how to proceed. So now that you have your 17 done, you have to come back to this chart and you can see it in the pattern. And what we want to do is that we want to start sewing everything together in order to form it. So we have to have all 17 of these done and we put them together. It doesn't matter if you haven't followed the color scheme, it's up to you, but like A, B, C, and D that you see here are just the colorways of the center dot color. That's all those mean. What we're more interested in is the outside letters, because we're gonna be able to attach. So what you need to do is that get all your granny squares together, and then we're ready for the next part. The next part of this is that I want you to lay these down on a table. It's a lot easier to do this on the table, so therefore you can follow this diagram. And what I want you to do is just grab each one of the hexagons and just tie them together to match the formation that you see within this diagram right here. Okay, so you're just gonna continue to match. So what I just decided to do, took yarn and I just went in between this span over here inside, and I tied them all together, and then if there was some that are attaching down, I would just tie them. So basically everything comes together so that it's all tied together, so it's one big solid unit. What I highly recommend though is right where D and G and E and F are, we're not to attach these, so do not attach this to these sides here. Leave it open so that you'll never forget, because once you start turning it up over, flipping it upside down and stuff to be able to sew, you might forget that you should not have to do that. So if you don't tie it right away, then you will not forget not to join that seam. So once you have it all together and you can see it all is attaching, it should be one separate unit except for these should be broken open. And then what you want to do is flip it to the other side. So you want to flip it to the wrong side. So flip it over, and then what we want to do is whip stitch on the back side of this only, so you end up with a beautiful finish on the front side. So let me pull up my example that I have off camera here. So this is the front side. You can see the beautiful stitch work that is all in the join, but I did join it in the back side here. Okay, you can't even see it because it's so well done, and it's all whip stitch. So you want to make sure that when you're sewing together, you're gonna sew on the back side. As you start to sew them together, I recommend pulling out the strings that you have tied together, so therefore you can kind of see where you need to go, and it kind of gives you a sense of accomplishment to it. The more strands you can pull out, you just have to kind of like just follow the path of least resistance, I guess. Sometimes you just have to do a little section, but just kind of do a path so that it does a lot of maximization in order to put things together. You might just want to go around. You can go in any direction that you wish. The key element though is make sure D and G and E and F are not attached here, and we want to follow that same configuration just like so. So let me show you how to do a whip stitch. So I'm going to start off with one side as a slip knot. This is my own personal preference. Leave that loop open, and you want to do it long enough so that you can do a whole good span at one time, and you want to get your darning needle out and feed the eye of the needle. So what I want to do is that I want to turn it to the back side. So this is the front side of it. I want to turn it to the back side, and I want to attach this one that I've been working on. So it's not gonna be part of this, but I just wanted to show it to you for demonstration reasons. So what we have here is that when we turn it around, you can see that there is two loops. Okay, and most of us will know these as stitches. Well, you have the front loop and the back loop based on how you're viewing it. So if you have it and it's turned upside down, the front loop is actually the back loop, and etc. So try not to boggle your mind too much with that. So I want to turn this over, and I want to turn this one over too. So I want to sew only on the back side. So what I want to do is I want to lay it into the actual project like so, and let me show you. So when I go into the stitch, what I want to do is that I want to make sure I don't capture both of the strands of the stitch. I only want to capture the one that's closest to me only, and this is what creates that beautiful finish. And you can see that you have a beautiful line, and that's because you're only going into one stitch. You will get more of a different look if you go into both, and it would be kind of very obvious and probably not so pretty. So you want to come into a corner. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the corner in this one. I'm only gonna go into one strand only, and I'm gonna come into the corner that I'm attaching it to and go into one strand only, and just pull. And what I want to do is that I want to put the needle through the slip knot like so, and pull snug. Don't go crazy with it, and simply just move down the line. So just go into one strand on one side, one strand on another. And what I like to do is just I make sure that I try to get the straggler underneath the stitching. Okay, so I move down the line like that. It's really easy once you get a hold of it. Once this is trapped under enough spaces, I just kind of trim it out and I don't worry about it. So you continue to work all the way into doing your seam all the way through. So as you get and progress, you're going to pull out your strings as you're sewing them together. But the key element here is to make sure that you only go into one strand on each side. Okay, and because each one of the hexagons are the exact same size, you will never have a problem with the stitches not lining up unless you've messed up on your stitch counts in some way. And if you have, just improvise. Don't have to redo everything because you may have made one little mistake somewhere. And that's all you're gonna do. So you're gonna whip stitch everything together. When we go to put this together in the final, we're gonna whip stitch it together as well. So this is what's important, is that when you go to whip stitch, you'll have like straight lines going across, but if you use the same color, so if I used gray on both sides and this was gray, you'll never see it. And in this case I used red, and you don't even see that the lines going across, even though they're there because the colors are matching. So just that's how you would whip stitch when we go to do this project. Okay, so now I'm ready for the assembly. So I have this all laid out and it matches exactly what you see here. Again, this is D and G and E and F. They're not joined here. And what I want to do is I want to start off in the top. It says A, B, C, D. So I assume that the designer wants us to start us off the top. Speaking firsthand, I would start at the top as well. I think that's a good call. What you want to do is you want to have the front side or the right side facing up towards you. And when we go to fold this, what it's going to do is it's going to cause us to have the wrong side facing us. And this is the side that we want to apply the sewing to anyway. So when we go to do this, this will be inside out. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to follow the instructions and match up exactly what we have. So we have on the upper corner we have A, and then here's A. But I have to tell you, once you start this, it's gonna be very obvious. Okay, so what you want to just do is that you want to just start folding things. And look, this whole thing kind of folds over just like this. That's how easy it is. And things just kind of line up on their own. So what I want to do is that I want to grab my yarn strand that I have that I used for tying, and I want to just come on the edge of A and A, and I want to just tie a little bow tie. If you want to use stitch markers, some people suggest that it's a better idea. It's up to you. I have a lot of spare yarn. I think a lot of us do. Is that I'm just going to use the yarn and tie a bow tie just to hold it together so I can make the right judgment call. So it seems obvious to me that this here, this is B, and B seems pretty obvious to me, so I'm just going to attach down here for the next one. And I'm basically creating a line of seaming that I'm gonna do all the way down. Okay, so I'm just following this up. So this is this is a D and G, and this is E and F. See how they're not attached? Well, that's because this is part of the top part of the stocking. So I can see what do we got here. So this is going to be F right here, and I'm looking at where is F attaching to, so it's gonna be right there. So this one is a little bit more tricky, so I will apply a strand there. And tricky meaning that I want to make sure it doesn't I'm not got the wrong fold. And the trick is just to get it laid out. It's easier to do it like this than it is to do each individual, and then once you start flipping it upside down and start to do the sewing, you may forget where things are. So this is I. Okay, let me just get my bearings straight, and let me just be right back. So I'm just continuing to attach, and I'm just kind of folding things up, and things are just working out. Okay, so I'm just gonna attach. I want to make sure I get into the right spaces at least for when they match each other, so that when you go to sew you can be guaranteed that you're starting in the right spot and it's not going to be out of whack for you. Okay, so I got that. Now I want to put this one together too, just to make sure I don't lose my place here. So coming in and in. On paper it's hard to see how this would fold together to make a stocking, but then once you actually get your project done, you can see how it does. So you can actually see at this particular point as you're working on it is that the back here, right at the back of the heel, it's not sewed, but this one is kind of folded up over. So in the end, what we have to do is that we have to start matching things. And what do we have right here? So O and O. So these two seams go together. So the only complex thing is basically the end, and you will notice that when I did my paper, and I'll pull that out in just a second, is that the outside toe point is a little different. So when you look at the paper here, it kind of looks like this. Okay, so that's there. That's there. It actually helped me that I did that on paper first, to be honest with you. So if you're feeling adventurous and feel like to go for the tape and try the sample done in paper format, it's up to you. Okay, and here's the final. So all I'm gonna do now is just start to sew along the seams in the back, or in the using the whip stitch. And because I'm looking at the inside of the stocking, I just want to concentrate on the one loop for when you go to do the whip stitch. So at this point I think I'm done. There should not be any seams that are left unaccounted for. See how that kind of just does it right in the front. So you got this. I'm just gonna throw another one in there. The worst part you can do is start sewing this and then all of a sudden you start sewing the wrong one together. I'll put that one there together as well just to make sure. Okay, so basically this is a stocking. This is how it looks. I put all the major seams together and all I'm just gonna do now is just follow it along and put it together, and then we're gonna turn this inside out at the end. Let me review on slip stitch, or on the whip stitch one more time. To do the whip stitch, just grab your darning needle once again, and I'm making mine all one color, so I'm using red. And on the other side of this put a slip knot and leave that out. So what I want to do is that I want to match everything line, or like stitch by stitch. So I'm gonna come up right into a corner over here and come to the corner to the other side. Once you get it started, it's pretty easy, and you're just getting one strand of each. Okay, and then you pull through, and then you want to put your needle through that slip knot to lock that into place. And all you're just going to do is that you're going to work yourself down through the seam. So you just come to the next stitch that's available to you. Just go into one strand on both sides. You want to pull it snug, but you don't want to be crazy about it either. You're not tying a boat to a dock. Okay, so I'm gonna just jump right over top of this white spot. I'm just going into the stitches where it is, and I can take that out after I'm confident that I've gotten past that point. So I will probably get down here and then I'll take that spot out, and it's a sense of accomplishment every time you remove one of these out. So you're just gonna work your way down the stocking just like this, and then you're gonna turn it inside out. So let me do that off camera and see how this turns out in the end. So off camera I have been doing all the sewing, and now I've turned it inside. It was inside out, now it's inside right, and look, the bottom of it actually looks like a stocking. You know, when you go to put it together, it kind of has these pointed edges, and I noticed with myself is like, oh my god, is that ever gonna turn out? But it does. Look, it's like the perfect shape. So now I can just do the back section. Let me show you how to make the hanger, but it's perfect on both sides, so you can hang it in either direction, and I actually think this is pretty cool. So let me do the back hanger, and it's a nice fair size too. So hopefully you get lots of gifts in that thing. So let me just do the hanging loop next. Now the hanging loop is really simple. It's asking you to join and use 4 strings at the same time. So you're gonna put all your strings together. So if you were doing different colors, just do all your strings together. So all you just need to do is chain 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And that once you get your 15, just trim your yarn. You leave enough of a yarn strand to go so that you can tie it right to the back of your stocking. So now you're gonna use these 2 strands, and now you're gonna grab the back of your stocking. Okay, it's kind of very obvious on what it is. It's the last one. So if you're looking at it, it's like folded in half. Just come right up to the top and go right to a corner point. Go in, grab your yarn strand, and tie this puppy together. So of course I used all red. I just wanted to. I just don't have any specific reason why I did. I just did it. So you know, creativity is based on your ideas. So if you have other ideas for color formations, that's completely up to you. It is your home. Decorate it any way that you wish. Make it more comfortable for you. Once you have enough of these tied, okay, just do a nice short strand like so, and now I have a hanger for the back of my stocking just like so, and now it's ready for the fireplace. Just run your eyes over it. Make sure that there's nothing, no loose ends coming out. Nothing is worse than you have somebody over and then they point that out for you. You know how family can be. So that's it for now, and this is my little stocking, and well, it's not so little, it's actually quite fabulous. And until next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of the Crochet Crowd as well as yarnspirations.com. Enjoy your holiday season and hope to see people complete these, and do show your creativity here on the Crochet Crowd Facebook. Until next time, see you. Bye.